This is National Chess Master R Rats at chess.com, continuing my video series on the correspondence team match played between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This was played up on board 13. Our man is AKacso versus AKacso. Patty is a national master. I snuck a few title players into this match. And let's have a look at the two games. We have the Scotch game. White could try the Scotch gambit, but he doesn't. He could try the Goring gambit, but he doesn't. Anyway, Black just develops, and the position essentially is dead equal. We're still in theory. Both sides have no weaknesses, and although Black has an isolated pawn on a7, I guess you could argue that's a weakness. But Black has free development and really nothing to fear, and Black correctly blocks the E file. And hey, guess what? Look at this, H3. It's not in book. The most common move in book in theory is bishop F4. Develop a piece, okay? Nothing wrong with developing a piece, but it's not something White can or Black can exploit. But C5 is a nice answer. Now, for what it's worth, Black's got a couple of pawns that are taking a lot of squares away from White, and White had this diagonal open for his bishop. Why doesn't he just put it here now? And if that bishop is ever menaced, although Black can't do it with knight h5, that bishop can drop back to h2. So White opts to fianchetto it, and the game is essentially even. And here I think logic just dictates, develop something. Develop the rook, get the queen off the back rank, something. But Black decides to push, and there's nothing wrong with it except it kind of destroyed the whole idea of controlling all those squares. And now White's able to access e4, a square he wasn't able to get to. And I think essentially the game is even. Now there's an interesting possibility coming up here. We'll see it here in a few minutes or a few moves. And White's just looking for exchanges. Black declines. And now White's poised to start chipping away at that black center. And there it goes. And now, for what it's worth, Black does have two weak pawns. But with his development pretty much almost complete, Black has nothing to fear. And Black just opts to rid himself of one weakness. But White creates threats on g7. And this is a very intriguing position. What Black plays is f6, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's kind of a double-edged move here. I'll show it. Okay, go ahead and take this pawn, and we'll talk about this because there's not much else to this game. Okay, a lot of players say, well, I can't do that. He's taking here. And then you go and you grab this pawn. Okay, and this is great for, well, let's see. If White tries to play this this bishop here, Black can stop it. Well, he can't stop it that way. You can stop at queen e5, I guess. But go ahead and take the bishop, or take the rook. Now, what's happened here? Black only has one pawn compensation for the exchange, but he is, for what it's worth, he does have a pawn on the 7th rank, and he has just as many pieces as Black does, or White does. Both sides have 5 pieces, and that pawn on a2 is a bit of a nuisance. But can Black get anything more than a draw out of it? Example, what if White decides to just give the exchange back? And sometimes this is a defense that some people are unwilling to do. They've got that exchange and they want to keep holding on to it. But Black does now have a pass pawn, but it's under guard. And Black's kingside pawns are kind of messed up. With correct play, this should probably be a draw. Or White can say, well, you know what? I've got an exchange. You have a pawn for it. I'm going to try to win this. I'm going to try to eventually encircle this pawn and win it. And if I win that, then I'm up the exchange and I win. So I can understand a reluctance not to go into this line or reluctance to go into this line, simply because uh, uh, if who wants to play an exchange down? Now, for instance, bishop g7 seems to be foiled by, well, let's see, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Now what's happening here? Rook takes, rook takes. Now h3 has turned out to be a handy move because there's no back rank mate. I don't think white has anything to fear about losing this game. And if white can somehow find a way to win that pawn on a7, maybe white has winning chances with the black pawns being split on the king side. Just interesting possibilities. Couldn't go into all of it, but maybe white can try for a win. It's certainly double-edged, and it's not easy to consider a plan like this when you see that this is under attack. So a lot of us make these moves like f6 just to stop that and avoid looking any further. And that's one of the things you want to try to do. Look at all possibilities. If you're playing for a win for black, it might give you a chance. That pawn on a2 could prove to be a problem, although I didn't demonstrate it here. Let's see if we can find any way that could become a problem. Let's see. That white has to worry about. Let's see. The immediate threat is to play bishop g7, and that would win the exchange back. Like, for instance, suppose white does something like, let's suppose white plays king h1, bishop g7. We're just doing this to look at the possibility of what happens if that pawn stays on the board. Now black has regained his exchange, and he's keeping his pawn, and maybe that pawn can be dangerous in a little bit. Let's get this knight into play, and who knows? Black's a pawn up. He certainly gets to play for the win, right? White has to try to find a way to get rid of that pawn, and that's not all that clear how he's going to do it. So anyway, this didn't happen. He played f6, and both sides play a couple moves and then decide that they're just going to call it a draw. And I think the game is relatively even. Black's weak pawn is now a pass pawn. White has a queenside pawn majority, but how do you activate it easily? White's opted to bring this rook over here. I think a draw is a fair result, but that's what happens with the Scotch. Let's bring the other game up. What move will it start it at? It's supposed to start at the beginning. We never know until we press it. Hey, it did it. Last time I picked move 14 of all things. Okay, so we have the Scandinavian defense, and white opts for a choice that helps, or this variation helps white develop his pieces, because black's making exchanges that develop the white pieces, and the game is relatively even. Now c4 is loose, so he has to stop and cover that. And both sides are developing. I'm not sure when theory ended on this. Latent possibilities on the long diagonal. But what's going to happen here in just a few moves is black is going to self-destruct. See, both sides are still developing, and everything looks fine and logical of an even game. Eventually white would like to try to get d5 in to activate this bishop. But it's at this point that, like I say, black self-destructs. Now, what should black do? Well, not entirely certain. One logical move is to put the rook on e8. Okay, then maybe the bishop can drop back to f8, and maybe black can try to get e5 in. But bishop goes to f6, and now white attacks it, threatens to double the pawns, and maybe black should just bring it back. But as I was saying, black self-destructs here. Now suddenly white's got a glimmer of hope here. Black's kingside is wrecked, and now white can penetrate right into the heart of the position and menace a pawn. So black defends the pawn, and now white brings another knight into play, or another piece into play, brings this knight, and now this knight's threatening to run to h5 and administer a mate on g7. So black gets his king over in the corner to help thwart that plan. Here comes the mate threat, and unfortunately, after knight takes f6, there's a new mate threat. We're no longer hitting g7, we're hitting h7. And white's also hitting the queen on d7. So black's losing. He let his queen side get weakened, and or king's position get weakened, and white took full advantage of it. So this didn't have to happen. Again, we can try to look for another type of plan. Maybe try to fianchetto the bishop indirectly. Well, if g6, the idea of bishop f6 and bishop g7. Or do you want to do it the other way? Like I was saying, rook e8, white gets a move. Bishop f8. Maybe knight f4, trying to get d5 in. g6. The plan is to fianchetto this. Now is white ready for d5? Maybe not. The queen's under attack. Let's send the queen over here, create a pin. Although we're not sure what that's. It just pins this pawn. It looks to me like black's okay here. Now we finally get d5 in. Okay, watch out for c3 and b2. Let's see. If anything, maybe black. Well, now you got to cover this knight. Let's take back with this knight and take. Now you don't want to take with the rook. There's a problem down here. Can't take with the knight. There's a problem down here. So maybe d5 is too premature. Let's see. Take with the pawn. Let's chop this off. Check. Oh, how long has this been hanging? Let's see, I've got to go back. I missed that. Let's see. Okay, stop and take here. Now you can Zwischenzug with a check. And let's see how to take the queen. Rook here allows a rook check for what it's worth. Let's take with this. Maybe white's better. Maybe white's doing okay here. Threats on c7. Just things to look at. I didn't think, with careful play, black could defend this, but this is just a start. This is how you begin your analysis. And then you try to find out if all this is worth it. I don't know, bishop e5, f4, bishop back, and let's see, knight e4. Maybe white's getting somewhere here. There isn't a pin here because of knight f6 check. So I don't know what could happen, but it didn't seem like black should lose this game quickly as he did. Certainly there were other ways to play this, but you do have to play chess. You have to be careful because in just the lines I analyzed, there were certainly a lot of possibilities. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I've now completed videos for those that were waiting to. I was playing catch up for a few weeks. I am very busy. There are, I think, 27 games yet to be completed. A potential of about 20 videos, if I'm not mistaken, depending on the outcomes of these games. So I made 141 or 2 of these. Suffice to say, they will all be made. But I just have to wait for the other games to complete, and then I'll get to them as quick as I can. And thanks so much for watching. Bye.